right, welcome in. I'm a few days behind, but we are back for another episode of Tropical Time. Um, Sorry, guys, I'm a little bit behind. But been busy, obviously work, trying to get the guests lined up. Got Spencer Burnham on. We're about to get connected with him, the assistant coach from Van Buren, a school you guys know I've been really high on. Um, Working on getting that interview done with Adron Chambers, the World Series champion, fan favorite St. Louis Cardinals. I've got to talk to him a few times on the phone now. Really cool guy. He's doing some cool stuff down in Florida, so can't wait to get him on. But let's dive right into it. On the line with me, former Tropic Van Buren Bulldog, now coach Spencer Burnham. Hey Spence, can you hear me, man?
Yes, I can.
Hey, what's going on, man? Sorry,
Howdy,
we're a
howdy.
couple of days behind on doing all this.
Yeah, just a little bit, but not a problem. We both got busy schedules.
Nah, man, it's all good. We knew we were gonna make it work.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah,
first, you were on the first two Tropics teams. That in those days
yes.
we were kind of the punching bag of the squirrels. We had a couple. I think third place was the highest finish we ever had in state. Did you ever actually think we'd have a team go on and win a World Series like the run we had in 23?
Schwartzy, if I'm gonna be completely 1,000% transparent, absolutely not.
No,
Um,
that's what.
uh, absolutely not. Um, I will say that it has been awesome to be able to watch the growth and see something that you had such a passion for and still had such a passion for to come to life. And those dreams that you had for that and for those core building years come to life. So that's been awesome. But to be totally honest, no, I did not think that
No,
was going to happen.
and I don't think you're alone, man. And I kind of joked, and I've joked with Menor before. People call us like the rivalry of us and the Squirrels. We wanted to
Yeah.
pimple on the ass of the Squirrels their first couple years, but
Oh yeah.
I tell you, man, those first couple years, it's just kind of the building block that, I don't want to call it a hatred we had for the Squirrels, but we wanted to beat them so bad because they were the top dog, and you guys kind of spread that attitude on to guys like Cheney and Ty Miller, who
Hmm.
kept it going to the next generation. It just kind of helped us get better year and year after year. But
Yeah.
that's something
And I
I can
think that
never.
a lot of that contributes a little bit to the Squirrels' success. Like you said, like it's one of those things where you see greatness and you want that for yourself and for your program.
Yep.
And it's not really a rivalry at that point, like you said, but it's more of just like we're gonna get there,
Yeah.
and then it's gonna be us and them.
Yeah. And that's kind of the analogy I used, on one of the first shows I did, talking about the game you guys had with Oran, who, they just came off a state championship. They look
Mm-hmm.
poised to do another one. You guys from Van Buren, you got a good team. You got high expectations. You see a team like that, that's where you want to get to.
Exactly.
You lose a game like that, you can get better. And that's, one thing
Yeah.
I've always talked to, some of our guys about is sometimes losing to a good team's a good thing because
Oh
you
yeah.
can get better. And that's when you're
Yes.
dangerous, man. When you know you can get better and you've got an off season to do it, I think you guys are going to be put in a really good position. I mean, how are you spending the off season with the Bulldogs? How do you come into a season where you got expectations like what you should have?
Well, first off, we're like you said, we're privileged to live in an area where we don't have to compete with football and not have an entire fall to be able to sit and just have to do off-season stuff and not be able to play games. Obviously, your strength of schedule is a lot less than what it is in the spring because you don't have those football schools. You don't have those bigger schools to be able to play against. But the fall definitely contributes to that for sure. And it gives you kind of a vision for what's to come for the spring and what you need to work on going into the off-season. So that's an absolute blessing to have in this part of Southeast Missouri. But really, we've talked a lot this year about being intentional. That's our word that we're using for everything. This fall, we were intentional with how we were throwing batters, whether we were playing a low-level competition to one of our highest ones that we had on our schedule for the fall. We wanted to be very intentional on our at-bats, our approach, the way that we handled things mentally, just all the different things to try to get to that championship culture. And like you said, with that Oran game, we had talked about it. We talked with the guys about it, that there is such a thing, like you said, about a good loss because it humbles you and you can see that that's where we're trying to get to. They're a championship culture team. All props to them. They played a great game.
Yeah.
But we could also see that we're just right there.
Yeah. It looks like you had
And
two
so
innings, I think, that
that's a
kind of got
humbling
away
game
from
to
you.
be able to play in.
Yeah. No, man, and I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. You know, if you want to get there, everything you do has to do with purpose. You know, you have to practice with purpose. You have to be in the weight room with purpose. You know, you kind of touched on it a little bit, and I've talked with Mason Adams. You know, one of our standout guys who's up at Mac, one of your alumni schools. Um, you know, they had football. You guys don't have football in Van Buren.
Yeah.
He credited, you know, a lot of his success to being in the weight room for football.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you kind of touched on it. You know, you're getting to play more ball in the fall, where those guys were doing football instead of fall baseball. You know, is there pros and cons to getting to play fall, where maybe football would get you in the weight room more? I think it's an interesting, you know, subject.
Yeah, I think that there are pros and cons to both things, just like anything in life. But we have guys that are constantly in the weight room, whether we're playing fall games. If we had football, they'd still be in the weight room, obviously.
Yeah.
But we've got guys that some of them have kind of taken the step back and said, okay, baseball's my sport, which I'm not knocking dual sport athletes, because college coaches, everybody loves a dual sport athlete.
For sure.
But they've kind of taken that step back and said, okay, I know that this is what I want to do. This is what I want to work my tail off on, and they're going to do that this offseason. They did it all fall. We have a really, really driven, good core group of seniors and upperclassmen, and some sophomores that are just constantly working. They're in the weight room. Some of the pitchers are actually going to be going through a P3 winter program this year, Premier Pitching Performance from St. Louis.
Really
I got
good
from one
program.
of my buddies from college.
Yeah.
And so that'll be a good thing to see this offseason and kind of work out the kinks for that on how we get that rolling into the spring. But that's one thing that they're really looking forward this offseason to try to get rolling and get a routine of that, because most of those guys that are going to be on that routine aspire to be a college athlete and to play at as high of a level of baseball as they can.
Yeah.
And so they have that vision and they want to start that right away. So that's one of the blessings of this team, is that they are extremely hard workers. They put their head down and they absolutely get after it.
Yeah, and I think, you know, obviously I want to talk about, you know, kids like Brady Smith and Carter, but, you know, you've got a coaching staff there where, you know, you played JUCO ball and you were solid with Mac too, man. You know, not just because you're one of my guys and I want to stroke your ego, but, you know, you signed on with a D2 school after that. Your guys' head coach played ball at 3R, you know, another JUCO school, local one. So you guys can bring that firsthand experience where some of these kids in the area, they're not as lucky to have a guy just out of college who, you know the work that goes into wanting to be a college athlete. I don't know where this misconception comes from that JUCOs, you know, are lackluster, or the guys who go there can't get on at 4-year schools. You've done it. You've lived it. JUCO kids are legit. Like
oh, for sure.
Yeah. So, you know,
you enter into a region like Region 16 baseball, and like especially myself, I can relate to so much that these guys from Van Buren, because I'm from here, that they're going to go through whenever they get to college. You get to college, you've been the top dog in high school for 2-3 years, whatever it's been. You get to college and you're like, oh man, these guys can play. Like you know that some of the guys that you signed with, like you know them from playing summer ball, like just from the area and stuff, and you're like, okay, we've got some guys. And then you start playing games, and you're like, man, this is like next level. Like it is as next level as it gets. And I've continued to preach, and Coach Nicholson and Coach Rick have continued to preach that the JUCO route is not just that's my back burner choice if I don't get these big offers, because you're getting that playing time. You're getting 2 years of exposure to where these 4-year schools can see exactly what you got, and they know that you're playing high level athletics.
And I tell you, those JUCO games in the fall, I went to one. It was John A. Logan and Mac, which you know from playing at Mac. That's a big matchup. John A's a huge school. There was 30, 40, 4-year scouts there in the bleachers, huddled around the TV, watching velos, watching a bats. It was incredible. Like, I have never seen something like that. So you're right. Like, you're going to go. You're going to get eyes on you. I know Purdue was there, all the OBC schools, Missouri State, SIU Carbondale. I mean, schools that you would never get in front of even playing summer ball. It's legit. But, nah, man, like I said, I didn't want to toot your own horn, but I saw you do it. I've seen my other guys, go through and sign with 4-year schools. It's just such a toll to go through the JUCO route and get better, be in the weight room every
Oh yeah,
day. But
absolutely.
uh, you know,
One thing I do want to touch base on while we're kind of on the subject of myself and Coach Nicholson,
yeah,
um, it's been an absolute honor and a blessing to work with those two guys,
yeah,
Coach Jake Nicholson and Coach Corey Ricker. Those two guys are just absolutely amazing and dedicated and love the boys, and create such an atmosphere where they can fall in love with the game and also put their heads down and work, and know that they've got guys behind them that are going to support them 1,000% in whatever they do. So I just wanted to give them a little bit of props,
for
because
sure.
they're great people to work with.
Yeah, I might have to talk to Nicholson sometime, man. Maybe I've seen
Oh
him
yeah.
a couple times. He seems like a really cool guy, but
Yes.
you're from Van Buren. There's got to be a little bit of pride in it for you because you were such a standout at Van Buren. You had some great years there. Is there a little bit of hometown pride now? You get to come back. You get to get to coach and help the next generation of guys.
Oh, absolutely. I don't really know if it's as much of a pride thing, and more of just I can relate so much to those guys because I'm from it.
Yeah.
Um, that I know the struggle of coming from a class two, trying to get looks, and trying to get myself out there with exposure. Not sure if I'm taking the right steps to get better, and just being able to be a blessing to them and have a tool, is what I'll say that myself is,
Yeah.
to be able to help them and to take it one step further. That, like you said, a lot of small schools, a lot of Southeast small schools, they don't have that luxury of having people that are from a baseball background that have lived it and done it, know what works. Um, so that's been one of the biggest things for me,
Yeah.
is just being able to relate with them and be able to say, hey, I've been there, man. Like, I know, um,
Yeah. And
and
two
I'm
of
going to
the
help you as much as I can.
right, and two of the big stars you have that I've got to see them both play. I've seen them both on the mound. Like I said, Brady Smith and it's Chase Carter, right?
Yes, it is.
Man, I've seen them both throw, and I tell you, those are two guys who are going to be college arms.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what do you expect from those two? I know Carter's dealing with some injuries. Smith had a pretty good, he had a real good summer with the Squirrels.
Yes.
What do you expect from those two now as upperclassmen leaders? And do you have anybody else, who may fly under the radar? Somebody, kind of keep an eye on this kid?
Yeah, I mean, we are absolutely blessed, and I'll continue to use that word because we are, just 1 through 9 and plus, that we have so many guys that are dedicated and just ready to go at any point. Have a spark off the bench, we have a spark at the plate, whatever we need. But those two guys are definitely major contributors. Brady's went up in velo since last year, and not to knock last year, because he had one of the greatest fall spring combo combined baseball seasons that I've ever heard of,
Yeah.
for a high school athlete. His ERA was like almost sub one, just an insane amount of strikeouts, and the strikeout to walk ratio was crazy, and it was kind of a quiet time, because you have so many other big arms, and he was just a sophomore last year, so he threw a lot of big innings. But like you said, you got your Chase Carters and you got your Gage Van Lanninghans, you've got all these guys around him, that when he goes out and throws, you're just like, okay, that's what you expect. And then you get at the end of the year, and you see the dog come out of him and the passion that he has on the mound, and you're like, okay, he's going to be a big time guy.
Yeah, I mean, the dog
And
was
then,
there because if he, like you said, he was a sophomore. If he had 10 more pitches and he was in that
yeah,
juniors, you guys probably beat Portersville last year and move on to play Chaffee. He just ran out of pitches, didn't he?
yeah, yeah. Down to the last out, and
Yeah,
that's what another thing we've talked about, intentionality. That's another reason why we've continued to talk about intentionality while I'm working with the pitching staff, this fall and throughout this year, is if we're just a little bit more intentional on a 2-2 pitch, a little more intentional on, not completely spiking a curveball on an 0-2 count, something that's enticing for a hitter to want to swing at. Just little stuff like that. You don't realize it as the game goes on, and then you get to that pitch count, or you get to the end of the game where you're a little more fatigued. And if you're a little more intentional and put in that extra work to work on those things, that's when that pays off.
yeah,
Um, but Chase Carter, another guy like you talked about, plagued with a little bit of injury, but definitely on the positive end of those injuries, he's one of the guys that's going to be doing P3 this offseason. And both of those guys are mid to upper 80s when they're feeling it. And so to have two horses like that in Class 2 baseball, you don't see that very often.
No, that's not.
And then we've also got a couple other guys. Chase Dillinger, he's a mid-80s guy out of the pen, just about as closer-esque as you can get.
Yeah.
Comes in, wants to get on the mound, wants to get to work, and he's going to absolutely blow your doors off. And that's exactly what he's going in to try to do every single time. It just sticks up and down the lineup. So as long as we can hit, I believe that our pitching staff is going to be pretty deadly come springtime.
Yeah. You kind of touched on it, 1 through 9. And, one of the big things I've had complimentary towards fall baseball and those is you're shoring up some question marks where, a lot of Class 2 schools, you got to worry about if your left fielder can even catch a fly ball sometimes.
Yeah.
And I heard this, I actually read this in an article not too long ago for high school sports. When it comes to high school sports, you can tell how good a small school is by watching their left fielder and their catcher. Catcher for obvious reasons, but I thought it was a really good point on if you got a good left fielder in high school baseball, that probably means you're solid because a lot of people are trying to hide I was that person in high school. They were trying to hide me in left field. I think that's a pretty cool point, but it sounds like you guys aren't going to have that problem.
No, and like I said, it's not really even a matter. That's kind of a blessing and a curse as a coach at a small school, is that it's not even a matter of 1 through 9 for us. It's a matter of 1 through 12, 1 through 13. We've got 12, 13 guys that are fully capable to come out and start in every game. And so that balance is sometimes a little bit difficult.
For sure.
But it's also, for sure, without a doubt, a blessing. I don't know how many we've had. I think 4 or 5 outfield assists this fall alone. Some really big arms that can control people's running games on the bases. Actually, conference championship, our right fielder threw out a guy at first base. That was a pretty cool thing to see. You don't really see that at any level of baseball ever.
Right.
So that was really cool. But we just got guys all around. That's one of the things that I wanted to point out is that everybody talks about pitching and hitting, but our defense is immaculate.
Right.
Our fielding percentage for the fall was like a 995. So really, when they do put it in play, which we accredit our pitching staff to not making that happen very often, or as much as we can.
Right.
But whenever it is put in play, they have absolute confidence that whatever's put in play, there's an absolute opportunity to go make a play every single time.
Well, man, I've loved having you on. We're about out of time because we only get so much time that we can post on YouTube. But, man, I'm so happy you're doing well. I'm glad you went through college. I know you're married and living the married life now, so congratulations to you there, too, you and your wife.
Thank you.
Man, it's just great to hear from you. I hope you guys, have – what did you finish this fall at? Like 14?
13-1.
13-1. Only loss was the Oran. Like I said, that's a loss you guys are going to build off of. But, man, Spencer, great to hear from you again, man. We'll obviously we stay in contact pretty well, so we'll be around.
Absolutely.
All right, man. Thanks for coming on.
I appreciate you having me on. It was an honor.
No problem, man. I'll talk to you later.
Sounds good. See you, man.
See you. Oh, Spencer Burnham, one of my guys from the original Tropics teams, back in Van Buren helping his alma mater. I've said it before, Van Buren is going to be a fun one to watch. Chase Carter, Brady Smith, 2 guys we touched on, they are going to be playing for the Charleston Fighting Squirrels next summer. Our next guest is going to be Michael Minner, the head squirrel himself. Obviously, squirrels and tropics, we've got our history, but he's a guy I've got nothing but love for. He's going to be coming on. Carter and Smith maybe 2 we talk about. So, sorry I was a little bit late, but I felt like Spencer was awesome. Really great show. Thank you, everybody who tuned into this. Can't wait to get the next one rolling. Men are coming up. Tyler Trover down at Portersville, working on Adrian Chambers to get my interview with him in. Just can't wait to see where this thing keeps going to. Thanks, everybody.